Welcome everyone to this briefing brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. It is great to be back in Israel after much delay in the US, trying to get back with everything going on, the General as well. So we're both back here in Israel. General, I'm sure you're very happy to be back on this side of the ocean.
Yeah, I'm very happy. My wife, Anat, is very happy, and the kids are very happy.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely. You know, it's hard to be away, but it's always very meaningful to come back to Israel, even with everything going on. So, General, there is a lot going on since we did our last briefing. Tremendous amount of things have been happening in Iran. So why don't you just jump in and share with us what you can?
So I think that we're moving towards a defining moment. We hear from the government and from the army that they are getting close to the point where they attacked all the sites that were relevant. We saw, of course, the bold decision of President Trump to attack the three nuclear sites, Natanz, Isfahan, and Fordo. And this attack basically pretty much destroyed the nuclear program of Iran. And this was coupled by many Israeli attacks on different industries that support this industry, and also the scientists that were toppled, killed, and this is a major blow, because when you don't have the experts, this is something you cannot replace. So talking about the nuclear program, I would say that we reached the goal of destroying the nuclear program of Iran. This was an existential issue. Israel is also getting close to destroying all the infrastructure around the ballistic missiles, all the factories that will produce them, the fuel that is given, the sites, the launchers. The IDF destroyed more than half of the launchers, and it's moving towards really destroying the whole capability. And as we are doing that, we are hitting the regime's sites, TV stations, and other symbols of the regime to really weaken it. And now we're facing a big decision. Are we moving towards toppling the regime, or are we just weakening the regime and creating the terms for a regime change? But a regime change needs to come from the Iranian people. They need to change the regime. We cannot do it for them. We can weaken the regime, we can topple leaders, but they have to do the move and really do something about their future. So Israel is very careful not to say, we have a clear goal, we'll topple the regime, because it's not up to us. You need the Iranians to lead this effort. But are we going to kill Khomeini and other leaders or not? This is a decision, a big decision that Israel needs to take. And I believe that it will be impacted by the decision will be influenced by what the Iranians are going to do. So Israel wants to end the war maybe in a few days, in a week, in 2 weeks, top. But if the Iranians are trying to move towards a war of attrition and saying, okay, we are going to shoot Israel every week, every month, and so on, Israel then will move to topple the regime, destroy the Iranian economy, do whatever is needed to make sure that this war ends, and it ends with a surrender and a decisive win. Israel can do whatever it wants in Iran. If we want to destroy the whole economy, we can. If we want to topple the regime, we can. Just a matter of decision. And they need to get to the conclusion that every minute that we continue attacking, the chances of them falling are bigger and bigger. And this is the strategy that Israel is pursuing at the moment. The attacks are mostly at this stage focused on the ballistic missile capabilities, because this is what is endangering Israel. So there is a lot of focus on that, but we're also attacking other capabilities in Iran.
Yes, General, thank you so much. Let me ask if we can just focus for a second on the Iranian nuclear program. There's, of course, a lot of talk about before the strike on Fordo that the Iranians likely moved some of their enriched uranium to another site. How concerning is that? The fact that they still retain enriched uranium, or even that there are other sites across the country, what level of risk and threat does that still pose to Israel?
I didn't hear Israeli officials saying that this is the case. I want to believe that if they move something like that, Israel will know about that and deal with this. So if they moved something, I believe that Israel will attack it. But I heard this, news, but I didn't get any confirmation from the IDF that this is indeed the case. Israel will destroy, if there are remaining capabilities, Israel will deal with them.
And given what we have seen so far and the tremendous success of the Air Force and other Israeli assets in Iran, how likely do you think it is that Israel can really just destroy the rest of the nuclear program in Iran?
The nuclear program has been destroyed. There is no nuclear program. Now, what we're focusing on is the ballistic missile program. Remember that there was an Iranian decision to build industries that will produce 300 ballistic missiles a month. In a year, they would have overwhelmed us with ballistic capabilities. So we destroyed these industries, and now we're destroying the headquarters. We're hunting the launchers, destroying warehouses of ballistic missiles. We're really trying to degrade as much as possible. If we can completely destroy their capabilities, we will. And this is why the IDF wants a few more days to really, really wipe out everything they have. We are destroying also airports. We destroyed their choppers and warplanes. So Israel is really attacking all the capabilities of Iran, and doing it fiercely. More and more waves of attacks of multiple airplanes, 50 airplanes at a time, attacking in Iran.
So in your best estimate, these daily strikes that Iran is targeting civilians here in Israel, and we run to our bomb shelters, in your best estimate, how long will this last for? How long will it be until Israel has knocked out that capacity of Iran?
Well, it depends on two things. One, Israel is saying we reach our goals and we can stop and demand from the Iranians to stop. If the Iranians don't stop, then the next attacks on Iran are going to be devastating. And then we'll bring them into complete surrender. So the issue is the strategy of how to end this, how to wrap, this war, how to reach the point where they have a clear interest that the war will stop. This is really what the government and the army are working, and the Mossad, to make sure that the terms needed to finish the war with a decisive win, meaning we reach the goals of war. We completely destroy the nuclear program, and we completely destroy the ballistic capabilities, and we weakened this regime to such an extent that the Iranian people have the chance to do something about it and take, their future in their own hands.
Now, General, there are voices in the U.S. that since President Trump chose to enter into this war and strike Iran, now U.S. military assets are less safe, and the U.S. is now more vulnerable than the day before the attack. How would you respond to that?
It's complete misunderstanding of reality. Thanks to this attack, first, every American citizen is much, much safer. If Iran would have become nuclear, this would have been a huge danger, not only to Israel, to the whole Western world, and to the US itself. The other thing is that when America shows strength, this creates global deterrence. Without this attack, the chances of China invading Taiwan or Russia enhancing its attacks in Europe would have grown dramatically, because the message would have been, maybe the US is the strongest army in the world, but with zero willingness to fight. And if you don't have willingness to fight, what does it matter what capabilities you have? So I think this decision really creates a chance of global deterrence. It also changes the balance of power globally, and it creates the terms needed to move towards normalization with Saudi Arabia and creating an alliance, strengthening the security, creating a Western Israeli-Sunni alliance that would stand strong against China and what's left of Iran and Russia.
I want to talk about Saudi Arabia, so I'm glad you brought that up. But before we get to it, just to focus for a second on the potential response and impact on the U.S. Back in 2020, the U.S., of course, killed a major general of Iran, Soleimani. Do you recall what the response was for Iran? I mean, it didn't bring an all-out war. Was the action in 2020 of the U.S. against Iran, did it wreak havoc on U.S. assets that we can draw a comparison to what will happen now?
When the U.S. shows strength, this creates deterrence. Because, of course, the Iranians know that the U.S. is infinitely more stronger than Iran, okay? So when you show strength, they are deterred. If you show weakness and appeasement, then they capture American soldiers, they attack bases again and again. And therefore, you know, when you show strength, this brings stability. It's peace through strength, not peace through appeasement.
For sure. Okay, so now let's go back to Saudi Arabia, if we can. If Iran is no longer a threat to Israel, to the US, to the region, why would Saudi Arabia want to enter into alliance with Israel? Maybe Saudi Arabia will argue, we no longer need Israel because our great enemy has been vanquished.
So I think we all understand that if Israel wouldn't have attacked Iran and wouldn't have succeeded the way it succeeded, there is no scenario where the US would have entered the war. Without Israel, Iran would have become nuclear and would have endangered the whole globe and would have conquered all these Sunni states, would have threatened them with nuclear capabilities and with the militias and everything. And I think there is an understanding in the Middle East that because in the US, each time you have a different administration and policies change end to end, Israel is the only really country you can trust to always push against extremism and keep the alliance. So Israel is the focal point. Israel is really the country that can stabilize the situation. Now, when they see what Israeli capabilities can do, they want to be part of it. And there is a whole market. I mean, today, countries like the United Emirates, they procure Israeli capabilities. So they want this alliance, you know, they want to work closely with Israel. They want to enjoy Israeli technologies, but also Israeli economy, and being able to really create these routes of trade. They need Israel for that. I mean, to move oil safely from Saudi Arabia to the West, you need to do it through Eilat. If you don't want to go through Hormuz and Bab el-Mandab. So looking at it from a security point of view, or looking at it from an economical point of view, Israel is really the key player that connects the West and the East.
Now, General, are you able to talk a little bit about the Strait of Hormuz and what impact it could have if it's closed, and the extent to which you think Iran would actually go forward with that?
So we hear the Iranians threatening a lot, trying to hold the gun with no bullets. They are being destroyed, degraded, they hardly have capabilities. They say they will shoot American bases. They say they will close the Hormuz Straits. Frankly, it will be completely suicidal, and maybe they will do that because they did so many mistakes. Maybe they'll do another one. But if they try to do it, they will be met with really a huge attack on them. From the US, probably destroying all the Iranian Navy, which hasn't been destroyed yet. And so it's hard for me to see them actually carrying out this threat. But again, they did many mistakes, and maybe they'll do one more. For us, it will be good. I mean, if they do something like that, we can really move towards toppling the regime.
I want to, of course, thank all of our viewers and supporters who are watching this briefing, sending in your questions, guiding this conversation, and really get you the information that you want. Sometimes when you turn on the mainstream media, it doesn't always tell you what is actually happening in the world and actually happening in Israel. So thank you for watching. If you appreciate this briefing and our previous briefings, if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're watching on Zoom, share the link with your friends and family. In general, a question came in. I'll ask you about the other countries that are surrounding Israel, that Israel is basically dominating their airspace as it goes into Iran, be it Syria, Iraq. How are these countries supporting the effort, or basically they have no choice but to stand idly because Israel has dominated their airspace?
So the reality is that, many of these countries view Iran as a big enemy. I mean, in Lebanon, they want to get rid of Hezbollah, and the Iranians are supporting them. In Syria, Syria was taken over by Sunni elements, and you also have, the Druze and the Kurds that are against Iran. In Iraq, part of Iraq is supportive of Iran, but big parts are not. Emirates and Saudi Arabia view Iran as a huge threat. So does Jordan. So everybody is happy that Israel is really destroying Iranian capabilities. And they also understand how strong Israel is, and this is going to impact the future. There will be peace agreements after this war, and there might be some surprising ones. You might see a country like Lebanon, the day after Iran, getting rid of Hezbollah and joining an alliance, Western Israeli Sunni alliance. It can happen. And so definitely very exciting things will happen, once we finish the war, but we need to win decisively in the coming weeks in Iran and continue in Gaza. The war, we have 4 divisions operating at the moment in Gaza, fighting fiercely. We managed to bring hostages back in the last week. The more we go into Gaza, the more opportunities we have, and the more pressure is mounting on Hamas. And what's happening in Iran is going to impact Hamas a lot. It will help us, reach a hostage deal. It will help us also eventually destroying Hamas. Hamas, without Iranian support, is anyway weak, but it will be much, much weaker. And it's going to help us also in Gaza.
And just to clarify, what level of support up until this week, let's say, was Hamas still getting from Iran?
So it's money, it's know-how, it's a lot of intelligence. Iranians have provided Hamas a lot of intelligence regarding where the forces, the IDF forces are, multiple kinds of intelligence, but also trying to bring more weapons. We see it in Judea and Samaria, huge amounts of smuggling. And when we are really destroying the leadership, military leadership of Iran, and also the industries and capabilities, this is going to weaken a lot the terror elements within the Palestinians in Gaza and Judea and Samaria, and help us move towards a decisive win also in these areas.
Now, do you think that in terms of the Gazan population, they're kind of stuck in this prison because no countries are really en masse accepting them to take refuge during this war. Do you think Israel's work in Iran will change the way some of these countries view what's happening in Gaza, and these countries may be more willing to open their doors to Gazans because they're seeking partnerships with Israel? Is that a possibility?
I think that once countries will see that we won decisively against Hamas, and then once Hamas is defeated, the Gazans themselves will talk and say, we want to go. There are many, many Gazans that want to emigrate. So I think the whole issue of Gazan immigration will be very relevant once we win against Hamas. At the moment, it seems to part of the countries like it's not relevant, but there will be opportunities once we win the war in Gaza.
Now, General, I have a question for you, which is not a fair question, because I know you've been stuck in the U.S. and you have been a little detached from Israeli society. But having been stuck with you in the U.S., I know you are highly connected to everything happening in Israel. So I think it's a fair question. That is, within Israeli society, there have been mixed reviews and opinions on what we should be doing in Gaza. What is Israel saying and the people of Israel saying about Iran? Is there much more unity with regards to all of the activity that Israel has been doing in Iran?
I think the war in Iran really, really managed to unite almost all the Israeli society. Huge support, and also first time in many years that we see prominent anchor TV personalities and reporters really praising the government and Netanyahu, people who were 100% against the government all the time. But things are changing. People view it as an historical decision, a very bold decision to attack Iran. And due to the big success of this attack, definitely this is creating a lot of support. And it's good in the sense that it's uniting the people, and people feel proud. Today, when I landed in the morning, I took a train home, and as we were in the train, there were sirens and the ballistic missiles shot, and we stopped in one of the Tel Aviv stations, and it's thousands of people, and everybody walked to the shelter in the station. I didn't see one person, worried. Everybody was laughing and talking and not running. They're walking to the shelter. We went many people, soldiers, into the shelter. Waited like 20 minutes. People were quiet, talking, looking at the phone, and so on. It ended. Everybody went back to the train, and we continued. The society is very, very resilient and strong and supportive of winning decisively. They are more worried about a reality where we don't do the job, completely than the fact that they are being shot.
Absolutely. Brigadier General Amir Avivi, it's great to have you back in Israel. Thank you, of course, for all of your leadership throughout this war, and thank you for keeping us updated and informed. Thank you to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning into this briefing. We will be back with you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. here in Israel. Until then, stay safe, stay strong. Take care, everyone.